Hi everybody. My name is Michelle the Bookworm, and as promised from yesterday, I am here to talk about a recent-ish book that I've read. I read this book, The Lost Girls of Paris, during the readathon this summer, and I absolutely fell in love with this author, and I will tell you, um, I'll go ahead and tell you why a little bit later on in um, this video. So basically the plot of this novel is, um, it's about French spies during World War II. It centers around a woman named Grace Healy, and she's a social worker. She works kind of in the immigrations department where there's a lot of immigrants flowing through France during this time, post-World War II, and she works in an office that tries to get these people some support. Um, she ends up finding this mysterious suitcase that at the train station that contains dozens of women's photographs. Um, and so she instantly becomes intrigued with this suitcase and these women. And with the help of her deceased husband's best friend, Mark, um, Grace has pulled down this hidden, mysterious mystery of finding out who these women are. Um, so a little bit about the author, Pam Jenoff. Um, has a bachelor's degree in internal affairs. She also has a master's degree in history and a Juris Doctor, according to my notes. I'm not sure what that is. The so I really like the fact that the author has a lot of background on these kinds of issues. These novels are inspired from her working in the Pentagon and working as a diplomat for the State Department handling Holocaust issues. So she has a lot of firsthand experience with these kinds of issues, which I really appreciate the authenticity. Um, so why do I love this book? Yeah, so I've never liked historical fiction. It has not been my forte. For those of you who have been following my channel, I drew a lot of classic literature and I do a lot of fantasy, but I don't do a lot of historical fiction. It's just not something I've been into. Um, and I'm especially not particularly fond of anything involving war. I That's just not something that I've had an interest in. Um, I've always thought books about war was kind of boring. Until I saw this book at Costco, and I was like, ooh, Paris, and I, love anything involving France. So I was like, oh, The Lost Girls of Paris, it's about secret spies. This could be kind of cool. So I randomly bought it at Costco, and it ended up being a fantastic choice. Another reason why I really love this book is that I was constantly wondering what was going to happen to these women. It was definitely a mystery with the constant changing perspectives. You get like little bits and pieces of what's going on in each and every narrative, but you don't get the whole picture until the very end. And that was it made it such a quick and easy read. I could not put this book down. Um, So there's also another reason why I love this book is that there's a lot of suspense. These girls are in the middle of war, so um, they're not sure who's friends or who are allies, and in an environment run by fear of the Nazi regime, the line between friend and foe can definitely be blurred. So let me talk a little bit more about the girls in general. I know that I haven't been quite clear about the actual plot line. So the plot line of this book is that males. So there's Eleanor Triggs, who started out as a military secretary, and all the big boys were talking about why were there men constantly being caught, and Eleanor piped up and said, well, it's because they're men. All the men in France are off fighting the war. And so they're like, and it's okay, what do you suggest, Eleanor? And she suggested that they trained up women to go in and be, basically, they needed information on the ground. They needed intel. And so she suggested sending in women in order to be, kind of incognito and be able to go undercover and provide them the information that they need. So that instantly gets her promoted from secretary to commander of the female branch of the Special Operations Executive, which is quite the promotion to happen within, 5 minutes. And in this position, Eleanor is forced to make some very difficult moral decisions. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Another main character that is talked about is Grace Healy. That's, I want to say, the main character of the novel because she's the first person that we interact with. She's also, I would also note that Grace's narrative takes place post everything that's post the other girls. So she's figuring all this out after everything's happened. So Grace Healy is happening in a year or two after these other events happened. So she's a social worker during post-war France. She's the main character of the story, and she uncovers and what she uncovers is explained in the other woman's narratives, and it kind of ties all the narratives together. And the last woman that I'd like to talk about is Mary Rue. She's honestly my favorite character. She's abandoned by her husband when he finds out that she got pregnant. And she works for very, very little as a typist in order to provide for her 5-year-old daughter, Tess, who currently lives with her aunt far, far away until the war's over and it's safe for her to finally come home. She was reading a French poet outside of a cafe when she was approached by a man who offered her a very extravagant job as a spy. Her and about a dozen other women were then trained up as secret agents. They went through the same exact military training as the men, and then some, in order to be deployed into occupied France as a radio operative. So that's all I'm going to say about that, because I really would encourage people to read about this book. In conclusion, I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 rating. I'm not sure why. I think it's because I'm not sure why I didn't give it a 5 out of 5, because this is a book that I feel is going to stick with me for a really, really, really long time. I'm going to remember it. I might possibly even go back to it. And I hardly ever reread books. This book has completely changed my perspective about the whole historical fiction genre. I have actually read another book by this author, which was really, really good. And I have another book on reserve from the library from this author. So yeah, it was great. I think the reason why I possibly gave it a 4 out of 5 is that it does have multiple point of views, and the changing of those point of views can get kind of confusing at times, especially trying to piece, since it's a mystery and you're trying to like hold all those pieces of the puzzle together. But honestly, it's a fantastic novel, like especially for someone who I don't like historical fiction. I've never liked historical fiction. And I absolutely love this book, and I love this author. The way that this author writes historical fiction is very, very personal. She gets you involved in the characters and attached to the characters, and it's not all about just history. It's about, the connections. She builds connections with the characters inside the novel. And I think that's why this really, really made such an impact. So yeah, feel free. So I gave this book a 4 out of 5. It was absolutely fantastic. If you're looking for a really good historical fiction novel that's not just a whole bunch of fluff and is completely boring, that's not completely boring, I would highly, highly, highly recommend not just this book, but this author as well. Anyways, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. What have you read recently that's outside of your comfort zone that surprised you? That is my question for today. So what genre have you read that's been outside of your comfort zone that ended up surprising you? And if you haven't done that, you should go ahead and do it. It definitely, it turns out pretty interesting. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you soon. All right, read on.